signed agreements with 6 cocoa exporters to roll out a platform that will provide plantations location data to comply with an impending European Union regulation on deforestation-free products. The European Union is Cameroon's biggest market, where it shipped about 80% of total cocoa bean exports, amounting to 185,613 metric tons in the 2023 and 2024 season. According to data from the country's National Cocoa and Coffee Board, under the new European Union rule, which takes the chocolate-making ingredients and other products won't be accepted on the European Union market if they were produced on deforested or corresponds with existing international commitments. The Cocoa and Coffee Interprofessional Council in Cameroon is launching a traceability platform that will enable European Union buyers to request coordinates of cocoa farmers' plantations. The platform will anonymously query data holders, as most cocoa farms are already geo-referenced by industry operators. These initiatives aims to show the product's global excellence. The European Union is not involved in the Cameroon cocoa traceability process, but Narcis Olinga, Deputy Director of External Trade, stated that 260,000 metric tons, or 80% of Cameroon's cocoa output, already meets the requirement. Kate Fossel, CEO of Telka Cocoa, a Kajul joint venture, emphasized the importance of following regulations to protect buyers, small exporters, and the country as a whole, including 6 exporters, including Telka Cocoa, Oficam, Neo Industry, Atlantic Cocoa Cooperation, Sikakos, and Fodec. Egypt has delivered its first military aid to Somalia in more than 4 decades on Tuesday, 3 diplomatic and Somali government sources said, a move likely to deepen strains between the 2 countries and Ethiopia. Egypt and Somalia have drawn closer together this year after Ethiopia signed a preliminary deal with the breakaway region of Somaliland to ease coastal land in exchange for possible recognition of its independence from Somalia. Mogadishu government has called the deal an assault on its sovereignty and said it will block it by all means necessary. Egypt at odds with Ethiopia for years over Addis Ababa's construction of a vast hydro dam on the headwaters of the Nile River has condemned the Somaliland deal. It signed a security pact with Mogadishu this month and has offered to send troops to a new peacekeeping mission in Somalia. ATN learns that Somalia has threatened to withdraw Ethiopia's 10,000 peacekeeping troops if the bilateral agreement to fight Al-Shabaab militants isn't cancelled. 2 Egyptian military planes arrived at Mogadishu airport with weapons and ammunition, according to diplomats and a senior Somali official. Somali is accused of playing with fire by importing Egyptian arms and antagonizing Ethiopia. Somalia and Egypt's foreign ministries haven't commented on the situation. Egypt has offered to contribute troops to a peacekeeping mission in Somalia, as announced in an African Union communique. Analyst has also warned that deploying troops along the border with Ethiopia could potentially lead to direct confrontation. Ethiopia's foreign affairs minister has emphasized the need to promote peace and security for Somalia and the region, including discussions to resolve differences with Somalia. Somalia's government is reportedly colluding with actors to destabilize the region, despite peace efforts. Ethiopia's statement did not mention Egypt or its arms delivery to Somalia. Turkey has hosted 2 indirect talks between Somalia and Ethiopia over the Somaliland deal, with a 3rd round expected next month. Landlocked Ethiopia needs sea access. Central African President Oligui, who deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba, has promised to hand power back to civilians next year. However, he is already campaigning for the presidency for August 2025, with plans to celebrate his victory during Independence Day celebrations. Oligui's transitional government has not provided much information about the fate of the Bongo family, who has been held in conditions denounced by the lawyers. The 48-year-old brigadier general has already gained popularity during the Independence Day celebrations. The transitional president, General Oligui, has set a 2-year timetable for handover and initiated an inclusive national dialogue in April. The dialogue, which included proposals from around 680 participants, aims to focus on civilian rule and economic recovery in a rich and underdeveloped country. The Gabonese government is set to introduce a presidential system without a prime minister and temporarily suspend the Gabonese Democratic Party. Former exile Daniel Mangara criticizes the proposals as hyper-presidentialism. A new constitution is set to be published and voted on by the end. GabonReview.com news outlet once again treating the referendum a confidence vote in post-coup authorities rather than a vote on the constitution itself. Despite efforts to improve life, such as free school, tuition and road repairs, daily problems persist, including water and electricity cuts, high living costs, and supply issues. Oligui's economic recovery goal faces challenges in public company management and a public debt of 70.5% of GDP. His principles of union discipline, work, and justice are criticized as veered towards authoritarianism. 7 trade unionists were arrested for striking over bonus abolition, and images of youths arrested for sowing fear circulated. Southern Africa is facing a severe drought, leaving 70 million people without enough food and water. In Mozi district, northern Zimbabwe, a community and livestock gather on a dry riverbed, digging into the floor to extract water. As rivers and dams dry up, more people on the area, putting pressure on the water source. ATN gathered that food shortage in Zimbabwe is affecting 7.7 million people, with families having less access to affordable, nutritious food. In Mozi, the number of families with adequate food has dropped by over half compared to previous years. Children are particularly affected, with hospital admissions for moderate to severe malnutrition doubling since June. A village feeding program designed by the government and United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF is attempting to address the problem by providing porridge for under fives. However, due to the El Nino drought, the program is now only given once a week. ATN also learned that Zimbabwe's Mudzi district has experienced water shortages affecting clinics and causing the suspension of vegetable irrigation schemes. Boreholes supply a quarter of clinics, and a major dam has only a month's supply. Farmers like Tambuza Mahachi are struggling to provide food and other necessities, leading to millions relying on handouts. A mother in southern Africa is limiting her children's food intake due to drought. She boils wheat to provide breakfast, supplying it from a neighbor. The drought has led to 68 million people needing food aid across the region, with a third of southern Africa countries declaring a state of disaster. The Southern African Development Community has only received a small fraction of the $5.5 billion aid it needs to combat drought in May. The region is experiencing its largest maize deficit in 15 years, and the hunger and water crisis is not yet peaking. Farmers will have to wait until March to harvest maize, and the situation is expected to worsen in the coming months. Canadian international students are protesting against immigration reforms, with nearly 70,000 facing deportation, sparking anger and determination on the streets. The protests are aimed at preserving their dreams and futures. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the federal government has introduced a series of controversial policy changes, sparking demonstrations in provinces from Prince Edward Island to British Columbia. The atmosphere in these protests is charged with palpable frustration as students gather to confront the anxiety of impending deportation. The seeds of discontent were sown in 2021 when the government dismantled the post-graduation work permit program. This critical pathway allowed international students to gain essential work experience in Canada after completing their studies, and its abrupt elimination was a devastating blow, drastically curtailing their chances for employment and permanent residency. Last year's introduction of a two-year on international student visas intensified the crisis as concerns escalate over housing shortages and rising unemployment. International students have unfairly found themselves scapegoated. Yet, for those living on the brink of uncertainty, these policies feel like a betrayal of their hopes and hard work. Advocacy groups like the Nojawan Support Network are sounding the alarm about the dire consequences many students may face as work permits set to expire at the end of the year leave them vulnerable to deportation. Adding to the already precarious situation, new provincial policies have reduced permanent residency nominations by 25%, heightening fears and frustrations among the international student population. As the protests intensify, the international student community and their allies are demanding that the Canadian government reconsider these reforms to seek a clearer, more supportive pathway for those who have invested their time and dreams in Canada's future. The unfolding situation is not just a crisis for these students. It poses a significant challenge to Canada's social and economic fabric itself. Honduras Foreign Ministry announced the termination of a century-old extradition treaty with the U.S. following concerns from Washington's ambassador about a meeting between Honduran and Venezuelan defense officials. Honduran President Xiomara Castro accused Washington of meddling in her country's affairs. The interference and interventionism of the United States, as well as its intention to direct the politics of Honduras through its embassy and other representatives, it's intolerable, the leftist leader said in a post on social media. The U.S. Embassy in Honduras expressed concern following a meeting between Honduran Defense Minister Jose Manuel Zelaya and Venezuelan counterpart Vladimir Padrino, where they met with drug traffickers. The United States indicted Padrino on drug trafficking charges in 2020. Rihanna said on social media that insinuating or implicating them as drug traffickers and disqualifying the authorities are really a direct threat to their independence and sovereignty. Honduras is a staunch ally of Venezuela's socialist government. The extradition treaty has allowed for the extradition of high-profile Hondurans, including former President Juan Orlando Hernandez and former police chief Juan Carlos Bonilla. Hernandez, a one-time U.S. ally, was extradited to the U.S. after Castro took office in 2022 and has since been convicted and sentenced in U.S. courts on drug trafficking charges. Controversial reform of Mexico judiciary will be debated and voted through criticism from U.S. Ambassador to Mexico Ken Salazar, who has called the reform a major risk to the functioning of Mexico's democracy. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador on Tuesday said he had paused relations with the Canadian and U.S. embassies in the country over their criticisms, which he said disrespected Mexico's sovereignty. He stressed the pause was only with the embassies and not with the countries. Ricardo Monreal, who will lead the ruling party in the lower house when it begins session on Sunday, said on Wednesday that there will likely be two sessions that day, one to swear in lawmakers and another to debate the reform. He ruled out a same-day passage of the bill. ATN gathered that thousands of judicial workers in Mexico are on strike protesting the proposed reform. A congressional commission approved the reform on Monday, paving the way for a final debate under the new Congress, in which the ruling Morena party and its allies hold a two-thirds supermajority in the lower house and are one seat short in the Senate. The reform will see around 7,000 judges, magistrates, and justices elected by popular vote, lower experience and age in the size of the nation's top courts. Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes ordered billionaire Elon Musk on Wednesday to name a legal representative for his messaging platform X in Brazil within 24 hours or face the site's suspension in the country, a court's decision showed. Earlier this month, X announced it would close its operation and fire its staff in Brazil due to what it called censorship orders from Moraes, while adding the firm's service would remain unavailable for users in Brazil. The Supreme Court posted a screenshot of Wednesday's court's decision on its X account, tagging Musk and X Global Government Affairs accounts. X did not immediately respond to a request for comment sent outside normal working hours. In the decision, Moraes says that under the country's law regulating internet issues, companies that do not respect Brazilian legislation or the confidentiality of private information could have their activities temporarily suspended. Former Nevada politician Robert Tellis has been found guilty of first-degree murder for the murder of investigative journalist Jeff German. Tellis, who has been in jail without bail since 2022, was stabbed by German's fingernails. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence that Tellis, who had pleaded not guilty, was responsible for the crime. A jury of 12 found Clark County Public Administrator John Tellis guilty of murdering 69-year-old German. The verdict was unanimously found willful, deliberate, and premeditated. Tellis was sentenced to life in prison and is eligible for parole after serving 20 years in prison. The trial, which spanned 2 weeks, involved testimony from dozens of witnesses, including detectives, forensic experts, and Tellis himself. Tellis alleged he was framed and stated that he was innocent. The murder occurred in September 2022 after Jarman was found stabbed 7 times in the neck and torso outside its Nevada home. The jury deliberated for approximately 12 hours before reaching its conclusion. Prosecutors accused Telles of killing journalist Jarman over unflattering articles about his behavior as an elected official. Telles was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a staff member and hostile behavior in his Las Vegas office. Telles lost his primary for a second term in 2022 after Jarman's stories were published in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Police have recovered security footage of a journalist assailant wearing a straw hat and sneakers outside his home. Authorities later found remnants of similar items at Telles' house, though they were cut up. The prosecution's defense attorneys argued that the evidence was planted at his home to frame their client. Prosecutors shared DNA evidence, a timeline, and a video of Telles' SUV driving near Jarman's home just before his murder, with the driver wearing an outfit similar to the one seen in the footage. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson celebrated the jury's decision in the death of veteran reporter Jeff Jarman, who had spent over 4 decades covering corruption in the city. The jury delivered a measure of justice for Jarman, who had one more article to publish about Telles at the time of his death. Glenn Cook, executive editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal, stated that the jury delivered a measure of justice for Jarman, who was killed for his reporting that held an elected official accountable for bad behavior and empowered voters to choose someone else for the job. Supreme Court has halted the Biden administration's multi-billion-dollar plaster path to loan cancellation and reduced monthly income-based repayments from 10% to 5% of a borrower's discretionary income. It also doesn't require borrowers earning less than 225% of the federal poverty line to make payments. The Supreme Court rejected an earlier plan to eliminate over $400 billion in student loan debt last year. The new SAFE plan, which aims to reduce student loan debt, has been challenged by Republican-led states, with the cost estimated at $475 billion over 10 years. 2 separate legal challenges have been filed in federal courts, with judges in Kansas and Missouri blocking much of the plan. The 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a ruling that allowed the department to proceed with a provision allowing for lower monthly payments. Republican-led states had asked the High Court to undo that ruling, but after the 8th Circuit blocked the entire plan, the state had no need for the Supreme Court to intervene. The justices noted in a separate order issued on Wednesday. The Justice Department suggested the Supreme Court could address the legal battle over a new student loan plan system, according to Mike Pierce, Executive Director of the Student Borrower Protection Center. No court has decided already enrolled in the SAFE program when it was passed by the lower court, and more than 10 million more people are looking for ways to afford monthly payments, he said. Sheng Li Litigation Counsel with the No Civil Liberties Alliance, a legal group founded by conservative donors, applauded the order. Gunman in the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump searched online for events of both Trump and President Joe Biden, looked up information about explosive over the last 5 years, and eyed the Pennsylvania campaign rally where he opened fire last month as a target of opportunity, a senior FBI official said on Wednesday. Investigators who have conducted nearly 1,000 interviews do not yet have a motive for why 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks shot at Trump during a July campaign rally, but they believe that they conducted extensive attack planning, including looking up campaign events involving both the current president and former president, particularly in western Pennsylvania. The FBI has analyzed the online search history of Donald Trump, revealing a sustained effort to plan an attack on a specific event. The special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh field office, Kevin Roderick, said that Trump became hired queries about the rally's grounds, Trump's speech, the Butler Farm show podium, and photos of the event. FBI Director Christopher Wray has revealed that FBI agent James Crooks conducted over 60 internet searches related to Biden and Trump, including the dates of both Democratic and Republican national conventions. This information is part of an emerging portrait of Crooks as a highly intelligent and reclusive man who had an interest in explosives, violence, and prominent public figures before the shooting. His internet searches of Democrats and Republicans have frustrated efforts to assign a simple political motive or establish why Trump himself would have been targeted. The FBI is not yet ready to make definitive statements about the motive behind the shooting of Donald Trump, but they have found explosive devices in his car and home. Investigators say that Trump had been researching bomb-making materials since at least 2019. The FBI claims Trump has struck in the air by a bullet or a bullet fragment in the assassination attempt. Crooks fired 8 shots from an AR-style rifle, killing one rally-goer and injuring 2 others before the gunman was killed by a Secret Service counter-sniper. Images of the rifle Crooks used, his backpack, and improvised explosive devices found in his car were released by the FBI. Donald Trump is scheduled to campaign on Thursday in Michigan and Wisconsin as a former president ramps up battleground state travel heading into the traditional Labor Day turn toward the fall election. Trump's intense focus on recapturing states he won in 2016 but lost narrowly in 2020 continues with stops in the middle of Michigan and western Wisconsin. Trump's day starts with an afternoon rally in Porterville, Michigan, near the state capital of Lansing. Trump won Int County, where part of Lansing is located, in both 2016 and 2020. But by a smaller margin the second time. It will be his 3rd visit to the state in the past 9 days and 2nd this week after a speech to the National Guard Association in Detroit on Monday. Trump will visit La Crosse, Wisconsin, for a town hall moderated by former Rep. Tulsi Gabbard, marking his first visit to Wisconsin since the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. The 3 Midwestern states, along with Pennsylvania, form a Northern Industrial Bloc Democrats held for 2 decades before Trump won them in 2016. Biden recaptured them on his way to the White House in 2020. Trump and his vice presidential pick, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, have been focusing on battleground states, including Michigan and Wisconsin. As the Democratic Party rallies around Hillary Clinton and her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, they aim to leverage the surge in enthusiasm among the party's base since her campaign launch, which was showcased at the Chicago Convention. Trump's events in Michigan and Wisconsin are both in swing congressional districts. Porterville, Michigan's 7th district, is expected to be highly competitive this fall due to incumbent Democratic Rep. Elissa Slotkin's decision to run for the state's open U.S. Senate seat. Meanwhile, La Crosse, Wisconsin's 3rd congressional district, is a hub where Republican Derek Van Orden narrowly won in 2022. Democrats Rebecca Kuke won the August 13 primary to face Van Orden in November. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this short break. Please do stay with us. Welcome back to the broadcast of the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, commercials, bookings and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials. On Facebook and YouTube is Atlantic Television Network. Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1. X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. Southwestern Japan is preparing for one of the strongest storms in the region, with some residents ordered to evacuate and major firms like Toyota closing factories. Typhoon Shanshan, considered very strong, is heading towards Kyushu with gusts of up to 70 meters per second, causing airlines and rail operators to cancel services for the coming days. A typhoon has issued an emergency warning of potential flooding, landslides, and strong winds that could knock down houses. The agency's chief forecaster, Satoshi Sugimoto, emphasized the need for maximum caution due to the lack of strong winds, high waves, and high tides. The storm is expected to approach central and eastern regions, including Tokyo, around the weekend. ATN gathered that over 800,000 residents in Kagoshima Prefecture and central Japan's Aichi and Shizuoka prefectures have been evacuated due to a landslide. Toyota's headquarters in Aichi, home to a house that collapsed, has been evacuated. Toyota will suspend operations at all 14 plants in Japan from Wednesday evening through Thursday morning. Nissan will also suspend operations at its Kyushu plant on Thursday and Friday morning. And Honda will temporarily close its factory in Kumamoto. Mazda Motor plans to suspend operation at its Hiroshima and Hofu plants in western Japan from Thursday evening through Friday due to the harsh weather system Shanshan. ANA Holdings and Japan Airlines will cancel over 210 domestic flights between Wednesday and Friday, affecting around 18,400 passengers. Additionally, 10 international flights operated by both airlines will be suspended. The weather system allows Typhoon Amphiel, which led to blackouts and evacuations. At least 28 people have died and more than 24,000 have been relocated in the western Indian state of Gujarat since on Sunday after heavy rains led to massive flooding. ATN gathered that several rivers and reservoirs are overflowing as water levels have crossed the danger mark, officials said. The Indian Army and National Disaster Response teams are carrying out relief and rescue operations in the worst-hit areas. The state is on high alert as the Weather Department has predicted heavy rains to continue over the next few days. Gujarat regularly witnesses severe floods during the monsoon season. In 2017, more than 200 people died in floods triggered by unrelenting rain, according to a government report. Many parts of Gujarat are vulnerable to floods because major rivers pass through a wide stretch of the very flat terrain before reaching the sea. Photos showed flooded streets and overflowing rivers in some places. Stranded people had to be rescued in helicopters. Transport services has been disrupted in several parts, and as many as 48 trains in the state were cancelled on Wednesday. Villages and towns in the Saurashtra region have been worst affected as they receive non-stop rain for nearly 48 hours. Several farmers told newsmen that the downpour had caused extensive damage to crops like cotton and groundnut. Weather officials expect the heavy rains to start tapering off by 1st of September as the deep depression in the Arabian industry has been facing a surge of allegations of sexual abuse against male stars since a report on women's issues in the industry was released. The 290-page report released by the Hema Committee detailed issues faced by women in Malayalam cinema, including poor working conditions and rampant sexual harassment. The industry, which produces around 150 to 200 Malayalam language films annually, is a vital and progressive business that has produced some of India's most critically acclaimed and progressive cinema. Parts of the report have been redacted to hide the identities of survivors and those accused of harassment. The HEMA committee report has sparked public outrage in Kerala's film industry, with several women, some of whom have given up acting, publicly expressing concerns about sexual assault and harassment. Over a dozen police complaints have been filed against male stars and the top governing body of the state's biggest film group. The Association of Malayalam Movie Artists was dissolved after its president, Mohan Lal, resigned on moral grounds, after some members faced accusations. The reactions to the first of its kind report are being closely watched by Indian film industries, including Bollywood. The government set up the HEMA committee in 2017 after a shocking sexual assault on a leading actress. The first public allegation came from Bengali actress Srilekha Mitra, who accused director Ranjith of sexual harassing her a few years ago. Many complaints against the film industry, including sexual misconduct by actors and lawmakers, have been made by unnamed women who have been repeatedly asked to compromise and adjust in exchange for opportunities. One woman, Minu Munia, reported an actor hugging and kissing her without her consent while filming. Actor and lawmaker Mukesh denies the allegations and accuses Munia of blackmailing him. Two actresses have accused a director of knocking on their hotel rooms at night, while another accused actor Siddiq of raping her in 2016. Siddiq, who resigned as AMMA General Secretary, denied the allegations and accused the complainant of trying to tarnish his reputation. The Kerala government, praised for setting up a committee to investigate complaints, has been criticized for its recent release of a report, which was submitted in 2019 after nearly 5 years of delay and legal challenges. The Kerala High Court has requested the government to submit the entire report, including the 54 redacted pages, to it. The Malayalam film industry has mixed reactions to the report, with stars like Mohanlal and Mammootty criticized for not making public comments. Some actors have welcomed the release and called for a proper investigation, while a prominent Film Employees Federation has asked the government to disclose the names of those accused. Some argue that the report and subsequent shake-up are positive changes in an industry often celebrated for progressive films. Actress Pafathi Thiruvothu, a founding member of the Women in Cinema collective, believes the industries that they do not hear anything about should be worried about. Son of a rent-owned Spanish actor has been jailed for life after he killed and dismembered a man on the southern Thai island and Kofanangang last year. Daniel Sancho Brunchalo, the son of television star Rodolfo Sancho Aguirre, claimed he killed Colombian plastic surgeon Edwin Arrieta Arteaga in self-defense. He pleaded guilty to the murder in August 2023. At the time, Sancho, now 30 years old, told Spanish news agency that he had been a hostage to Arrieta, who he said was obsessed with him. The case has generated a huge amount of interest in Spain, with scores of Spanish reporters flying to Thailand for the trial. ATN gathered that Sancho was found guilty of premeditated murder, concealing a corpse, and destruction of property. A court on nearby island Koh Samui, where the case was heard, initially issued a death sentence for murder, but this was commuted to life imprisonment after taking into account his cooperation during the trial. Sancho, a chef who has his own YouTube channel, was also ordered to pay 4 million baht in damages to Arrieta's family. ATN also learned that police discovered parts of Arrieta's body at a landfill in Kofangang in early August last year. Around the same time, Sancho went to the police to report that Arieta, then 44 years old, was missing. Sancho admitted to killing Arieta upon further questioning. Thai media reported last year that investigations had shown that Sancho had bought, among other things, a knife, rubber gloves, and a bottle of cleaning agent, leading police to conclude the murder was premeditated. Sancho later led police to 7 sites around the island where he disposed of Arieta's dismembered body in plastic bags. Reports say that Sancho and Arieta had agreed to meet after getting to know each other online. However, the defense argued that Sancho acted in self-defense after Arieta tried to force him to have intimacy. Sancho said the plastic surgeon tried to rape him in a statement published by Spanish newspaper El Mundo. South Korean singer Taeil has left the K-pop band after being accused of an unspecified sexual crime. His label announced on Wednesday. The 30-year-old agency SM Entertainment released a statement on X saying the member will depart from the body band after learning he has been accused in a criminal case related to a sexual crime. However, the label did not specify the nature of the alleged crime, but said it recognized the seriousness of the situation and decided Taeil, whose legal name is Moon Taeil, can no longer continue his activities with the team. Taeil has not publicly commented on the allegations. SM Entertainment added that he is fully cooperating with the police investigation. The Bangbei police station in Seoul announced it was investigating Taeil in relation to a sexual crime, according to South Korean media. Taeil was part of Neo Culture Technology, a globally popular South Korean boy band that debuted in 2016. The group currently has over 24 members divided into several sub-units, including Neo Culture Technology 127, Neo Culture Technology Dream, and Neo Culture Technology Wish. Taeil was recently active in Neo Culture Technology 127. On 15th of August last year, Taeil got into a car accident in downtown Seoul in South Korea while traveling on his motorcycle. He jumped the platform. A French judge has put Durov under formal investigation, accusing him of complicity in illegal transactions, child sex abuse images, and drug trafficking. He is also under investigation for alleged money laundering and refusal to cooperate with judicial authorities. ATN gathered that Durov, who spent 4 days in public custody following his arrest on Saturday at an airport near Paris, was granted bail on condition he pays 5 million euros and does not leave French territory. Durov will also need to report twice a week to police of the town where he will be staying. He will have to be home at certain specific hours, a judicial source said, without saying where he would live or how many hours a day he would need to be there. The arrest of Telegram CEO Durov has sparked debate on the boundaries between freedom of speech and law enforcement, and the responsibility of tech companies for social media content. Lawyer David Olivia Kaminsky, representing Durov, acts that do not directly or indirectly affect him. Telegram is adhering to European digital rules, according to a spokesperson. The arrest of Russian tech boss Durov, who has French, United Arab Emirates, and Russian citizenship, does not necessarily mean guilt or lead to trial. The Kremlin has defended the arrest, which has restrained relationships between France and Russia, as not turning into political persecution. Investigations can last years before being sent to trial or shelved. The United Arab Emirates is in touch with French authorities and representatives of Emirati citizen Pavel Durov, a government official said. French President Emmanuel Macron, who is known to be an avid user of Telegram, said earlier this week that Durov's arrest was in no way a political decision and that the probe had been decided by judicial authorities, not by the government. Macron had launched with Durov in 2018 as part of a series of meetings with tech entrepreneurs, a source close to the president said, and Durov was granted French citizenship in 2021 under a rare procedure for high-profile individuals. France President Emmanuel Macron is set to visit Serbia to strengthen ties and strengthen relations with the Balkan nation as it navigates its European Union bid and ties with Russia and China. The two-day visit will involve discussions on the purchase of France's Rafale fighters, energy and artificial intelligence. Macron is set to meet with Serbian President Vučić for the second time this year, following his visit to Belgrade in May. The meeting will focus on Serbia's strategic position on the EU's edge with ties to the East and West. Macron stated that Belgrade can maintain its independence posture only under European Union auspices, stating that the idea of Serbia seeking its own way in the balance of powers is an illusion. The European Union remains Serbia's largest investor, and hundreds of thousands of Serbs work in Western-owned companies. Vučić stated unresolved issues with the purchase of Rafale aircraft, estimated at around 3 billion euros, have been a struggle for 4 days, not a question of price, but of certain guarantees. Alexander Zivotich, a history lecturer at Belgrade University, viewed the aircraft sale as a significant departure from Soviet-Russian influence, citing pledges to buy military technology with money. And that's it on the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. We told you that cocoa location data to meet European environment rules. Arms sent to Somalia following security deal. Protests in Canada as foreign students face deportation. We also told you that judicial reforms to be debated